Hey, welcome back to Livin MN Outdoors. I'm Daniel, and thanks for tuning in to this week's fishing report. This is going to be a special one, guys. We are going to bring on a special guest for this fishing report. Kind of a big name in the fishing industry right now. So let's bring him in and introduce you to our special guest. This past Friday, our son was born. We named him Russell. He's going to be helping me out from time to time on the fishing report, and then be ready to see him a bunch this ice fishing season. But with that being said, we'll dive into this week's report. I don't think he'll have much to say, but I'll take care of the important information. Alright, so this week we're going to start up on Leech Lake. As far as the walleye bite goes, it's been a little bit tougher. The majority of the fish that they are finding, they're finding them in 5 to 12 feet of water. They're targeting those shallow weed lines. They're pitching jigs and minnows, fatheads, rainbows, spot tails. Pitch those on a 1/8 ounce jig, chartreuse, white, gold. Those have been the best colored jigs, and you'll probably come across a few nice eater walleyes. Now, the bite that is really on fire up on Leech right now is the perch bite. If you want to get in on some perch action, target those shallow, weedy bays such as Sucker, Steamboat, Agency, and Sand Point, and you're more than likely going to fill your live well with some really nice perch. Now, the way they're catching the perch, a 1/16 or a 1/8 ounce jig, tip that with a fathead or a rainbow, and you're going to have a blast pulling in a ton of jumbo perch. Now, as far as the muskie bite goes out on Leech Lake, the muskies have abandoned the shallow waters this warm weather. They pulled back out deep. They're finding them in the deep green weeds right now, and the best way to pull them out of there is with a Medusa, ripping it really hard, or with a dive and rise bait and give it a ton of hang time. Now, they also are finding some muskies on the rocks as well, but the fish that are hanging on the rocks right now are extremely tough to get to bite. Now, I didn't really get any report for bass or panfish out there, but if you guys are looking to get out on Leech Lake, you want to hire a guide, Leech Lake Guide Team LLC, they are still running guide trips. They extended their guide season. They are running some specials for jumbo perch trips right now. So if you want to get in on some of the hot action out on Leech Lake, go ahead and call Leech Lake Guide Team LLC and get yourself a spot on their books. All right, now if you're looking for a place to stay up on Leech Lake, we highly recommend Horseshoe Bay Lodge. They have a beautiful resort up there. They got hotels, cabins, condos, full bar-in restaurant, a huge marina. Whatever you could ask for, they can help accommodate you. So if you're looking for a place to stay, go ahead and call Cam or Courtney from Horseshoe Bay Lodge. All right, now moving over to Mille Lacs Lake. The bite on Mille Lacs, it still is pretty steady. As far as the walleyes go, there are several areas to target them, and it's all dependent on what time of day and what conditions they are. Now, if you're fishing in the middle of the day, they're still targeting that 20 to 26 feet of water. They're pulling crankbaits on lead core, specifically Shad Rap number 5s in perch and crawfish colors. And now they are starting to transition over to bottom bouncers, and they're pulling shiners and small sucker minnows. Now, if you can get your hands on some 3 to 5 inch sucker minnows, I highly recommend them. You're more than likely going to pull a lot bigger fish that way. So if you get a chance, pull some bottom bouncers and try and catch some of those Mille Lacs Lake giant walleyes. Now, in the evening, if it's windy, 10 to 14 feet of water in structures such as Big Point, Doe Island, Hennepin Island, in some of the shallower rock reefs as well. Now, the best way to catch those fish, if you can find leeches, which are extremely tough, a slip bobber and a leech is still working. Otherwise, a night crawler and a fathead, or you can pitch jigs with minnows as well. In the evening, if it's not windy and it's pretty calm out, they're targeting that 16 to 20 feet of water on rock reefs. Same thing, slip bobber in a leech or minnow, night crawler, or you can pitch a jig in a minnow as well. All right, now as far as the perch bite goes out on Mille Lacs, they're finding the perch in 20 to 26 feet of water. They're finding them in the basins off of structure. They're using down imaging. They're locating schools of perch. They're spot locking. They're dropping down a drop shot or a jig in a minnow, and they're catching some really nice perch out there. Now, as far as the smallmouth bass goes, pretty standard out on Mille Lacs Lake. Use your side imaging. Try and find some big boulders or some real chunky rock. If you can locate those, spot lock off of those, cast in there with a Ned rig or a drop shot. Green pumpkin has been working really well as black shad. Now, as far as the musky bite goes out on Mille Lacs Lake, starting to see a lot of guys targeting those deep weed lines in 10 to 14 feet of water. They're casting big rubber baits such as medusas. They're throwing big bucktails as well. And some guys are finding some really nice muskies on Mille Lacs right now. Now, if you're looking for a guide out on Mille Lacs Lake, go ahead, give Castles Resort a call. Whether you're looking for a walleye guide, a smallmouth guide, or even a muskie guide, they can put you in touch with some top-of-the-line guides out on Mille Lacs Lake. And if you're looking for a place to stay up on Mille Lacs right now, they are running some fall specials on their cabins. They're still running their launch trips. They got pontoon rentals. So if you're looking to get up to Mille Lacs Lake out of the Isle Bay area, go ahead and call Jeff or Kimberly from Castles Resort. All right, now moving over to Lake Winnie. The bite has been very spotty lately. One day the fishing is on fire, and the very next day it's really tough. Now, as far as where they're finding the majority of the fish, shoreline breaks and shoreline weed lines in 5 to 12 feet of water. Now, the bite is starting to transition over to a jig and minnow bite, but they are still getting some on crankbaits and pulling spinners tipped with minnows. Now, some areas that you can try, the North Shore over by the Third River area, that's holding some fish still. Mallard Point, Stony Point, those are some good areas. Tamarack Bay, that's starting to get better, especially trolling crankbaits in the evening along the shoreline weed lines or in some of the shallow humps out in the bay. Now, the perch bite out on Winnie, the perch are starting to school up. They can be kind of tricky to find, but the perch are starting to load up into the bay in the shallow weed lines. So pitch jigs, slip bobbers with the minnow, or pulling spinners works as well for those perch. Now, as far as the panfish bite goes, not a ton of bluegill action right now, but they are catching some really big crappies out on Winnie. If you can find a cabbage bed or some pencil reeds in that shallow 4 to 10 feet of water, more than likely you're going to catch some really quality crappies. Now, how to catch them? A small jig in a plastic, a jig in a minnow, or you can float a minnow under a slip bobber, and you're more than likely going to have a ton of success. Now, as far as the northern pike out on Lake Winnie, the quality of the fish has picked up, but they're not quite as aggressive as they were earlier this year. Now, if you specifically want to target them, pull big spoons, spinner baits, or large crankbaits, and you're more than likely going to boat some really nice pike. Now, as far as the muskie bite goes, I've been seeing quite a few guys fishing Tamarack Point still. There's some guys over on the east shore fishing the flats. They're throwing bucktails, big rubber baits, some dive and rise baits as well, and a few guys are finding some nice quality fish. Now, if you guys are looking to get out on Lake Winnie, you're not real confident in yourself finding fish, we highly recommend Zups Guide Service. Scott runs a phenomenal operation over there. He does not have a ton of availability left this open water season, but he will be running 4 ice castles out on Lake Winnie this coming ice season. They're booking up pretty fast, so if you want to get in on some walleye and perch action out on Lake Winnie this winter, go ahead and call Scott from Zups Guide Service. All right, now if you're looking for a place to stay on Winnie, we highly recommend the Pines Resort. They have cabin availability yet this fall, but he did tell me that if you're looking to book a cabin and a day house for ice fishing season, those are starting to book up really fast. So if you want to get up there, get in on some of the ice fishing, you don't want to stay in a sleeper house, you want to stay on shore, book one of those cabins, get a day house, go out, catch fish during the day, come back up, hang out in the bar and restaurant, and then stay in your cabin. Now, the Pines also accommodates bird hunters, whether waterfowl or upland game. They also will allow deer hunters to stay there, so whatever you're looking to chase up in the Northwoods, go ahead and give Chad a call from the Pines Resort. All right, guys, well, that's going to do it for this week's fishing report. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys could, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell to all. We will be doing open water reports for the next couple weeks, and then we'll be taking a break until ice fishing season. But as soon as there is signs of ice starting to form, we will get right on those reports. I figure now we're probably only about 60 days away from ice, so stay tuned. Start getting your ice fishing gear ready because it's coming fast. Now, just want to remind you guys, if you get out fishing, don't crowd other fishermen. Be kind at the boat ramps. Lend a helping hand when it's needed. But most importantly, don't forget to get on out there and get living.